My philosophy about what to do in the world isn't go to a pristine area and live there and enjoy your life. It's to find a place that's degraded and fix it up.
"23 years ago, we started developing the food forest system here. We've got 480 different species of plants at last count. That doesn't include the 80 different types of apples and the 60 different types of gooseberries. And so it's lovely to have that diversity. And it means that every time of the year there's things flowering, things giving fruit, some root crops you can eat. And so having diversity is special, and that's what makes a forest garden resilient. This property had been abandoned for probably 40 years. No one lived here, and an old house had burnt down on the spot.
And the top area, this area where the house is now, was completely covered in junk and the remains of the old house. Most people would have not even crossed the threshold of the property to have a look at that, I don't think, because it didn't look very appealing. But to us it did, because I thought, well, for one thing, nobody wants it, so it's probably going to be cheap, and it was, cheap to buy. And secondly, I thought, I can fix this.
A food forest is a permanent planting, so you want to set up just like a forest system. So a forest system can be there always. The big trees and the middle-sized trees and the bottom layer and the ground layer, they work together. Some plants take up some minerals and give others back, and another one does something else.
Growing out in the forest garden there, aside from the native trees, which I've used as a framework or a platform for building everything else, and those provide me with shelter from the wind and also nest sites for the birds, and the birds are a really important player in the management of the garden, in the tikoko, the cabbage trees that I've got growing there. Starlings nest in almost all of them, and those starlings, as they're feeding their youngsters, their babies, are flying out and finding any soft-bodied caterpillar or grub they can. So there's our pest management for that kind of thing. And then as an understory, or the second layer down to that, we have our fruit tree layer, which is our heritage apples and pears and plums and nectarines and peaches, apricots. And then below that, a layer of berry fruits and currants, red currants, black currants, white currants, gooseberries, Worcester berries, all of those sorts of shrubby plants that like to grow in the semi-shade. And then wrapping around all of that are the biennial and perennial herbs, some of which are edible, some of which are medicinal. And then below that, there are bulbs and root crops that grow, such as parsnips and wild carrots, those kinds of things. And then winding their way up through these things are vines, like grapevines and kiwi fruit and Manchurian gooseberries and hops and all sorts of things, which kind of bind everything together and tie the forest together.
It's so peaceful when you walk about, and it's just all the different flowers and the energy and action and all the insects, and the birds have their own life, and so the birds are doing all their thing up in the trees and coming down to feeding, and insects are flying around and having babies and flying off on missions. It's like being in another universe, really. It's just amazing, and to me it's how life should be, with that livingness and the interconnectedness of all the plants and the bees and the herbs.
In a forest garden like ours, the major player is wildness, is the natural world and all of those things that happen in there. And my job is just to kind of mould that to suit our purposes to a certain extent. We are not separate from the wild world. We are as wild as it is. But we've worked towards a form that is not fitting in with the wild world at all well. And it's going to realign us fairly soon, in my view, unless we can recognise that we need to be fully integrated into that world.